So thanks, Nancy. I appreciate that. I'm going to talk about some of the other work that was done as part of the permitting pilot. In addition to analyzing that permit data that Nancy just went over, specifically some stakeholder engagement, things that we learned from hearing from people, and some resources that were developed. So we had two groups that we heard from. There was a stakeholder group, which was basically everybody who was willing to take the time to come to the meeting. Manufacturers, contractors, building professionals, architects, consultants, local government staff, everybody. And then we had a smaller working group that was really a focus group of Bay Area building department staff, because we were really focusing on that group. Let me see here. Okay, get the windows right. All right, so there were two meetings of each group, starting and ending with the broader stakeholder group. And roughly speaking, the first couple meetings were spent mostly listening to stakeholders and learning from their experiences, while the second two meetings were focused on ways to address what we heard. Some key takeaways, and some of these things will relate to things you've heard from others. There is a lot of variation among the jurisdictions. Some have separate electrical and plumbing permits, others have joint permits, some have a fee to verify the electrical load capacity and a process for checking that on the plans. Others look at the panel in the field and check it, the circuits there. Some jurisdictions, as Nancy just said, take weeks. Others have same-day permits, and some jurisdictions issue some permits same day and take longer for others. A common source of the delays are the back and forths to correct and complete applications when the the building department says, "Hey, wait a minute, I need this additional piece of information," and the contractor says, wait a minute, what does that mean? And they have to go back and forth to get it all figured out. With same-day permits, we heard that does put a little more stress on the inspections. Everything is being dealt with by the inspector in the field after something has been installed, usually. And so it's really important for the inspector to know what they're doing. And if there's an issue, it can be a much bigger deal to correct. So those really rely on the contractors knowing the code requirements and installing them the right way the first time. And so through all of this, I think one of the big takeaways that we heard is that the clear expectations, knowledge, on everyone's part are really important for this whole system to work. So based on that feedback, we decided to focus on developing some resources to answer common questions and help ensure the building departments would know what to ask for, contractors would know what to provide in an application. And we were also hoping that making these resources available at the regional level would help to provide some consistency across jurisdictions and give jurisdictions tools so that they wouldn't have to come up with them themselves one by one, jurisdiction by jurisdiction. The project compiled 3 resources related to heat pump water heaters. These were all based on resources that already exist or existed prior to this. There was the building code assistance sheet that was based on a handout that one of our trainers, Russ King, developed for one of our trainings. The permit supplement template was originally put together by Tom Cabot, whom you heard from earlier, and the electrical load estimator was based on a version created by the city of Sunnyvale, I think it was. All 3 of them were modified somewhat based on input from the stakeholder and working groups. All of them have been reviewed and vetted by code experts at this point. So if there are any mistakes on them, please blame us and not the people who originally came up with them, because they're our fault at this point. I'm going to go through these 3 resources very quickly. There's an assistance sheet. Can be used by both building departments, staff and applicants, summarizes the code requirements. And just want to take a minute, I was seeing in the chat earlier when Eric was speaking, a little debate about permits and the value of permits. And I think one of the things we're trying to do with these resources is to find that balance point where the process is as efficient as it can be, but we don't lose that safety element, because it is important that electrical things are put in correctly and that our houses don't burn down. And how do we make sure that happens? So there is a balance, and we need to find it. The permit supplement template, this is supposed to be printed on 11 by 17 piece of paper, or could be used as part of a permit application. It also provides some information on code requirements, and it includes places for people to fill in the specific details for a heat pump, for a water heater replacement. And finally, the electrical load calculator, which can be used for other electrification projects as well. This includes those two approaches that were mentioned previously, the top-down and the bottom-up approaches. A couple folks mentioned them earlier. The top-down approach being, when you, as Tom described, when you look at the overall demand that has been that a house has had over the past year, and what was the highest demand, and the difference between that and your panel is what you've got available, as opposed to the bottom up, which is where you add up like every appliance in the house. What does it take? And if they were all running at the same time, how much electricity would it take to meet that demand? So you can see why there are differences between those, but there are instructions in this tool as to how those work, and there's calculators for both approaches. Is important to look at both, I think. And all these resources are available online, so you can look at them more closely. They are on the BayREN website. They're on the tech website for the permitting pilot. And if you take a look at them, if you have any feedback as to, this seems off, or it would be really helpful if you also included this, or we love it, we'd love to hear. So please let us know. We can improve them as it goes. And so creating those resources, that was a good first step. I don't think we're done, obviously. So based on what we've learned, and so this is based on both as part of the engagement, what Nancy described being learned through the analysis of the permits, and the process, the timelines there. We think that it's important to continue providing training, both for contractors and for building department staff, and hands-on experiences with heat pump water heaters are really, really helpful for everyone. It's much easier to permit something when you've seen it, you've touched it, you know what it is and how it works. So hopefully that'll get easier for everybody. Every building department is different, just like every building is different. Processes are different. There's a lot of variation. So working directly with building departments to address their particular concerns and providing support for them will be an important part of this. And then we need to just do more to get our resources out there and into use. And I'm going to just stop there.